So if you're watching this, you probably hit a milestone in some form in your life. We meet milestones in every different part of our life, from our family, our friends and social life, even to our career and hobbies and interests. Milestones are generally met after we make small, significant changes in the development of our lives. Thank you for being here with me today if you're watching this video. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Evan Andrews and welcome to my channel where we are talking everything and anything filmmaking. This video is all about milestones in our career. Today, I thought I would share the biggest milestone thus far in my filmmaking career. I haven't met many milestones yet in my filmmaking career, but the number one most important milestone that I have met was the one time I was able to work on a documentary film series here in the city of Houston. The reason that this was a large milestone for me in my filmmaking career is because it really opened up my eyes to my favorite kind of filmmaking, and that is the documentary style of filmmaking. Now, this documentary series was not something organic that I created. I was actually online one afternoon searching for some freelance work, and I was on, of all sites, Craigslist. Yes, Craigslist. On Craigslist, I found this post of a first-time producer looking to create a documentary or documentary series of sorts. Now, this was this producer's first sort of crack at filmmaking, so it was very important to them that they produce something at the highest level that they could. So I responded to the post about the position for the documentary series, and just about 24 hours later, I received an email back setting myself up for an interview with the producer. Things went pretty well, and I seemed to feel like it was going to be a great opportunity for me because I was sort of just beginning in documentary filmmaking, as was the producer. So it kind of seemed like a good fit. What was great about working on this documentary series was the fact that I actually got to do it with my best friend. For those who don't know, my best friend John White is also another filmmaker and creator. And if you've seen anything from me in the past 10 years, there's probably like a 75 to 80% chance that John and I both worked on it together. We kind of just click creatively like that. We've kind of been a really good tag team duo. So I let John know about this opportunity that I found, and he actually went on to Craigslist as well, saw the post was still up, and he inquired about possibly joining the effort of the documentary series as well. So John and I both were hired on to do this documentary series, and it was the greatest thing that I could have imagined. I was getting to work with my best friend. I was getting to do fun things that I was very interested in, and I was gonna learn a whole bunch along the way. So as the project begins, John and I quickly realized that we were kind of the only hands on deck besides the producer and a close friend of hers. That means we were all directing, editing, shooting, doing the sound. Everything imaginable was coming from the hands of John and I and the brains of the producer. The documentary series, for those who don't know, was called I Am Houston, and we released it on YouTube back in 2018. The show was meant to highlight figures in the Houston area here and really showcase their businesses and the creative mentality that they go through on a day-to-day basis. We did a lot of pieces on people that were graffiti artists and abstract artists. We even did a few segments on local breweries that have kind of been popping up in the last few years here in Houston. There were three sort of checkpoints to this milestone for me that kind of opened my eyes into what it really took to be a filmmaker. The first one was the opportunity of me getting to use better equipment than the equipment that I was using at the time. When I came on, we had access to higher end cameras. We used a Canon 5D. I believe it was the Mark II, but I could be wrong on that. But using the Canon 5D, it wasn't so much of a stranger to me because I did come from a Canon background, but there were different things like the different menu options and different capabilities that the camera could work in other than what I was currently using at the time. Another thing that really helped the quality of what we were able to produce was the lenses that we had at our disposal. The most popular one that we used, because it kind of fit every piece was the 24 to 70 millimeter Canon lens. And then for our interview segments, we would use like our 85 millimeter prime. And then we even had a 35 millimeter prime that we would use when the time was right for that. But the number one most important piece of equipment that I had never used before and really had to teach myself how to use was a gimbal stabilizer. We use the Crane 2 for all of our shoots, and it really helped us capture cinematic B-roll and really stepped up the level of our production. But this piece of equipment did come with a large learning curve, as I had never used one before. So I had to learn how to balance it. I had to make sure that I knew how to do all the controls. Even as something as simple as learning how to focus properly while using the gimbal was all something that I had to learn all within really the first month before we started shooting. That first month before we started production was really a huge learning curve for John and I. We both really had never shot a formal interview before. We both had never messed with sound before, and that was originally the reason that I was brought on to this production, was to be the sound guy. Once we got going and we all realized that we were kind of all wearing the same hats, it just became one of those things that I had to really step up my knowledge of to make this production the best that it was going to be. So the next pillar of this milestone for me was definitely learning how to use lighting to my advantage. Before, in pretty much every shoot that I had no idea what I was doing with lighting. I was just throwing lights on my subjects and hoping that I could get a clear image out of whatever I was producing. Once we really got into the art of lighting and shooting an interview, this is what we spent most of our time on. It was really thought that if we can nail great interviews, that the B-roll will come. We came from a B-roll background of just doing promotional videos, so we really wanted to nail the footage in the interview setting, and that's all started with the lighting. We did as much as we could in the research of how to light an interview. We learned really quickly about Rembrandt lighting and how to come up with a very high quality, crisp image. We learned everything we could about 3-point lighting, and it really brought to light for us in the science behind the exposure triangle and how ISO, aperture, and the shutter speed really affect and manipulate the image that we're producing. And the final pillar to really what made this a huge milestone for me was learning all about sound design. Sound design was something that I never thought of formally, really. It was kind of always an afterthought. I really came from a background of doing a lot of music videos and stuff like that, so sound wasn't really all that important to what I was doing at the time. So being brought onto a project where my primary focus was to be sound, I really had to learn everything that I could about recording the best sound. I learned how to use different varieties of external recorders and really understood the settings of each of those recorders to get the best crisp quality sound that I could get out of them. I learned how to set up a boom mic for interviews and really understand how the different setups can give you different results. And this, I think, is one of the number one things that really changed my filmmaking going forward. I think it was really important on how much I gained the knowledge of how sound really works with the image to drive home the story or the feeling of emotion that we were trying to invoke with the images that we were capturing. My number one takeaway, aside from all the production and all the glitz and glam of behind the scenes, was really the connections that we made with the subjects that we were portraying. We really got to see how some of these creative and business entrepreneurs like to focus their time and the stories that they had to tell. I realized that no matter what, everybody has a story to tell, and it was our responsibility to really showcase that. Every time we would release a new episode, I really felt like the production got better and better and better. And by the time it was all over with, I had this portfolio to say that I helped produce that, I helped create that, and it was something that I could be very proud of for myself moving forward in my filmmaking career. So for those who may have seen a shift in my work from the past 3 years or so, I attribute 100% of that success to working on the I Am Houston documentary series. It helped me advance in my filmmaking abilities in ways that I just didn't think I was capable of at the time. It really opened my eyes to what it actually took to create something of such a high quality, and that has really shifted how I value myself and my freelancing abilities for the clients that I have today. But most importantly, it taught me that I was able to create and teach myself anything, that with just a little bit of studying and a little bit of hard work, that I could really get the results that I was looking for in creating better videos. So for those that are looking to get into filmmaking, all it takes is practice, practice, and practice. So if you like this video, make sure you go like it right now and leave me a comment. Maybe let me know which episode of the I Am Houston series was your favorite. Make sure that you go subscribe to the channel where we are releasing content every Friday on what it takes to be a filmmaker in today's industry. And I will see you guys on the next one. Peace out.